the guidebook is the star of the show, but I want the card to be the star of the show. Hey crazies, welcome back. I hope you're all well. It's Anna from Astro Lady Tarot. I have prepared this this top-down video and tried making it cute. Oh, whatever. We're all here to have a good time, right? And this week to look at decks, hence the top-down video. Because you know what? I'm gonna make a VR to Tarot Magpie. At least that's where I saw this topic being discussed and showing decks. Tarot decks that take their time. So decks that reward a slow reading. Now guys, if you know anything about how I like to dive into tarot, let me just tell you, it's often about really taking your time. However, watching that video, I realized that I definitely have some decks, especially one, and I talked about it online, that really slow my readings down. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it's actually a really good thing because I get to sit with the card. I get to do the path working thing. And it's just really good. Of course, we love having quick and not easy, but quick messages, quick and snappy messages, right? I also have decks that trigger that initiate that. But today we're going to have a nice, quiet, relaxed moment with some of my so-called slower decks, decks that reward a slow reading. Since it is summer, and for me, I am in the middle of enjoying the most out of my summer holiday, let's take it slow with these decks. The very first deck that I want to talk about, that I want to highlight in this video, because it's not really a tag, is Tantric or Secret Diini Oracle. I have this newer version, and I really love my readings with this deck. I love reading with this deck. I love just contemplating the cards, and it's the combination of collage and just really weird guidebook, I guess. And also like the vibe of this deck is, it's dark feminine, actually, a Diini, Diini dancer in the sky. Um, but there's so much humor in it as well. So there's death and destruction, but then also some very funny cards. So whatever you get, the combination, you can imagine it's like eating spicy food. It's like eating food with all those layers of spice, you know, where the first hit you get from the first card, it's something very sweet. But then as you keep, you know, tasting that food, it gets, all of a sudden the spice kicks in. And I have this whole video, it's an old one by now, that's called Secret Diini Oracle is Blowing My Mind, because it so is. Guys, this is such a good deck. And pretty sure this was my first collage deck, because before this one I didn't like collage decks. Now I have a soft spot for analog collage. And it's just, you can see this is the version that came out later. It's not the first edition. You know, let's not talk about cardstock and everything. That's really not, I think, necessary for this tag unless we're going to talk tactile experience. But honestly, I don't believe any of these decks that I have to show you today really do anything special. Actually, I have one of them that's even a little bit not that of a positive tactile experience. But This deck is a combination of tarot and oracle, and I think it's very strong. So the images, I love most of them, and the guidebook, it sort of hints at that each and every one of these cards belong to a tarot card, which is why I took the liberty to write on these cards. And I agree, I think it would look amazing trimmed, but for some reason I just can't do it with this deck. And it's not just because I want to have the tarot correspondences there to, make the link between, so number 57, that means nothing to me, right? Except for something in the guidebook. Actually, that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, just random numbers on cards that don't mean anything, but okay. Temptation card here with the apple and the snake and the grass, it reminds us so quickly of Adam and Eve, right? Eve and Lilith and everything in the Garden of Eden. The temptation, we at least, I think most people will get that from this image, or would go there from this image. But then the guidebook also says this is the sixth card of the Earth suit, so six of coins. And I know some people have made their own system, which I think is really great. I almost did it myself, where I feel some cards are really obviously, another card in their suit, or even exchanging suits. But in the end, I kind of like the challenge that's occurring when reading with this deck, between the weird image, weird outlandish image, and the corresponding tarot card. And that, brain exercise is what makes this a nice deck. And I rarely have quick and easy messages from this one. And yeah, definitely still blowing my mind. All right, so that's my first one. And there's less cards than a regular tarot deck because they didn't include the court cards. Let's move on to another reason to have a deck that's a slower reader. I even have the little white book in here because I am sort of, well, half-assed doing tarot throwback for myself, and I interpret it as doing inner child work. This is my inner child deck. Uh, no denying it. Using the little white book, even, it's not my style, but actually, yeah, why not? It's kind of a why not moment with this deck, because I want to read this deck, I want to experience it sometimes as if I am a young child, and I need the guidebook. And actually, the little white book, it does give us, it can, some of them can give us something different, something more. So actually, let's look at the star. I have no idea if that's a good example, but the star, hope, faith, inspiration, bright prospects, mixing of the past and present. Okay, well, there. I could get that by myself from the star card, but I don't usually incorporate time with the star card, except when we're talking about making dreams come true. Optimism, insight, good omen, spiritual love, fulfillment, astrological influence, pleasure, the proper balancing of desire and work, hope and effort, love and expression. So maybe it's just with the trumps, but no, actually all of them. This little white book um, mostly consists of keywords or helpful words. but I like it. You see right there, it gave me something specific to contemplate. To anybody who has this deck, have you noticed in the Nine of Staffs, there's a whole person behind that middle tree, just looking at you, knowing you're there. Okay, the reason this is a slow deck, because obviously this is very clearly a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. Can't deny it. It's just pastel colors, crazy border. Um, yeah, it's basically what I loved as a kid growing up in the 90s. Reason is just that. It reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of everything that I liked as a kid. It reminds me of simpler times slash calmer times. And therefore, because it initiates inner child work and it has so much potential for, bringing up memories, um, I consider this a deck that's not quick and snappy, usually, because of course it's still Smith-Waite. But I mean, it just makes you dream, you know? I love all of this so much. Hmm. It's the fairyland, it's the romantic aspect, and mostly for me, I'd say for sure, yeah, the fact that this and no other deck is my inner child deck. There's a new version out there, borderless. Backs look great. Everything looks great, but I have my 90s copy and I love it. For tactile experience, this is the good stock, the heavy cardstock, the like buttery cardstock. Ooh, delicious. Ritual Tarot. This is the deck that I was talking about. This is the deck that I mentioned on my channel saying, yes, this artwork makes me slow down when doing a reading. I love this deck, top 5. Okay, so it's very, very busy. I'm not one, I don't really like minimalistic decks. I find it often sort of waste of card space when there's not something there. And I do have some decks that are really minimalistic actually, but this it's there's something just so beautiful about this. It's the symmetry of the cards. It's the fact that there's a lot of nature. It's the fact that there's a lot of feeling. Um, no titles. I never had an issue recognizing which card is which. Look at that, the landscape it creates. And the focal point, this is Arcanum 13. There's history with the ancient statues and paintings and different textures. I should really also show you Cave of Sybil Oracle, which is her new oracle. And this deck is so earthy. Of course, all the elements are there, but for me, it's such a actually really a good one for summer. I think somehow it always stays with me when I get a deck in summer. I tend to feel different in summertime because I live in the Netherlands, and honestly, from my experience, we have like 2 weeks of summer, that's it. During the whole year, rest of the year is winter, autumn, spring. Don't even care about it because it's still cold and rainy and wet and so much, well, whatever. It's the typical always raining kind of country. And in summer, it feels so different because I have some time, but then also it's warm and a bit drier, and you just feel different. And how great is a deck like this with images where it's all about the artwork, no words? I love that for one. And it's so filled to the brim with collage pieces. Again, analog collage, by the way. And you just get to see something in every corner of the card, and there's so much depth in multiple sense of the word. I'm glad that people like this deck because it's been through some ordeals. People thought that I was being paid by the creator to say nice things about the deck, stuff like that. Guys, come on. I've had to set the record straight a couple times about that. And that's insane and also not very nice to me now, is it? I do have integrity as a reader, and, I really enjoy doing this, talking about tarot on YouTube. So this deck really to me has all the right ingredients to be so, it's so intriguing, intrinsic. There's so much going on, but it's not overwhelming ever, actually, come to think of it. And to finish a thought fully, since I got this deck in summer, around summertime, I believe will always somehow remain a summer deck with that slower, warmer, earthy vibes, right? That energy, that quality. I just find it so beautiful. She did such a good job. And of course, this deck is, it's an always deck, but it does such a good job at slowing you down because there are more things to look at. Focal point, of course, is the face because it's sort of in the a face with the hand. Yeah. And the gesture that he's doing. So it's in the middle. There's the light, right, from the picture, from the photo that was used. But then, of course, we are human beings and we are drawn to human faces. But if we look at all the different types of sea that we see here, it gives us something different. And then this drawing, and then that mask, double mask, and then this, oh, it's not his robe, it's a horse, And then here we have this long sword, and the crown, and oh, there's just so much, that you can path work with. Also here, this is justice. So we can zoom in on these, I believe they may be wings, but then all the details, of course, but then also those little landscape pieces. I love those. I really, truly love those because it's always a surprise to see them. And it because it's collage, it gives such a, realistic, different feel to that little piece in the card. Do I have a really, really good example here? Ugh, it's just so beautiful. This is the Sun card. Well, this is actually a good example. You can feel something really new and interesting with the fetus there. You can feel something surprisingly fiery with this fire here. And this, I'm not quite sure what it is. First thought was an old tree. Are these cave paintings? I mean, it makes me think of how old everything is, you know? The sun is the center of our universe and really the ancient world. Anyway, yes, I could just show you this deck all day, couldn't I? Love this one. Sometimes all you need is a new deck. And this is an oracle deck. This is the card I pulled the other day, Pelican. I did a whole unboxing first impressions about this one. I've been using it. This is definitely more minimalistic. I usually don't go for black and white, but somehow this is the time. I really like this artwork. Again, it's very landscapey. There's a lot of, I don't know, it creates a world. It creates a new atmosphere, doesn't it? It's just the use of light and dark, and they did really well. Now, of course, to me, this is super satisfying. All right. So, the way it's done with the title, beautiful artwork, and then just two keywords here. And then, yes, I do use the little booklet, little guidebook, because I want to. This is one of those decks that I just want to read the guidebook with card, image, my own message that I see in it, but then also my own memory with that particular animal that's depicted. You know, if I have one. But then I also want to journal, or at least think, contemplate about the message in the guidebook. So that's, to me, that's different. With most of my oracle decks, the guidebook can be amazing and fantastic. Tantric Diini guidebook, you know, it's crazy and it's different traditions for sure, but it's really cool. It reads like Book of Thoth. I always say that, but it's fiery, it's gorgeous, it's surprising, it's bold. I love those guidebooks. This one, I wouldn't say it's bold, but also, of course, it's, you know, less significant. But it's intelligent. It gives me something. So a deck like Tantric Diini with a guidebook that's great, I can still read it super intuitively. And here it's different because, haha, we have only one thing to look at in the card. You could say, yeah, the animal, but then also the surrounding, the landscape, you know, what it's doing. Sure, where it's from. We have elements in this deck. But actually, it's about that one energy that this deck reminds me that I need to really respect these energies. Um, and it's different. It gives me something different. All right. That's what I'm saying. Now, having said that, I do have a little bit of a problem or issue. That's just me personally. Pulling a card, but then actually being more with the guidebook than with the card. If only the guidebook message was on the back of the card. And guys, I know I'm crazy, but it is like magical guidance cards, right? If you got the version with words on the back, that's the version that I have. It's great because you don't need this. You just work with the cards. And if you want to read it, bloop, turn it around. There's your message. Turn it back. You know, it's like you're actually working with the card. So it's not a critique. It's just realize now I love to work with cards more than with guidebook. Of course, I already always knew that, but this is just one of those instances where I'm just like, I'm not getting enough from just the card. The guidebook is the star of the show, but I want the card to be the star of the show. And just in how to handle a deck, it would be solved if the mess for me. I know people hate this, but for me, the message would be on the back of the card, right? I actually contemplated taking the guidebook apart and sticking the messages on the backs, but then I realized, and I might still do it because, again, crazy, but that would mean that the deck would go from this large to this large. Maybe just a little bit thinner, obviously, without the cover, but it would become this. Plus maybe contact paper. So, it's maybe it's the end of the road. I'm not saying I'm getting rid of this. Definitely not. Um, I'm saying I'm working with it, but also I'm contemplating a bit of a mod just because how I want to work with it. Having the titles on the back or the explanation on the back wouldn't make it a quick and easy work deck. It would still make it a slow paced deck, journaling about it, thinking about it, pathworking again. But it would just make it, I guess, nicer for me. Another one that's different for me is Morgan's Tarot, which is an oracle. I destroyed the little white book and made room in this one that I made for it for my own interpretations and, reading from experience. So this is one of those sort of minimalistic decks. Title card's actually a part of the deck. So glad when I found out that I still had it somewhere, that I hadn't thrown it out or something. So now I have the full deck. Perfect. This is so fun. Such a fun deck. So much humor, but again, depth. It's in the same humor depth family as Tantric Diini Oracle. There's just so much, I don't know, so much good in this, okay? And this is also one of my summer decks. This one gets used more during summertime. Probably because it's fun and, funky. But also I think it's because I feel I have more time, and I actually do also have more time to pick a card, research it, write something, or read the guidebook. Sometimes it's huge message, sometimes just 3 words, and add my own interpretation to it. This again, it's so wacky what you get. When you see a card, you think you know what it means, and then you read the guidebook and it's something that's so so like, what's it called, like far-fetched, but it's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous to work with. This is a deck that I really love. Let's see what love is. Also, the guidebook irritated the hell out of me, so I made it on alphabetic order. So here, love The spirit of this card in a reading is determined by the context of the situation. Well, great, very clear. Thank you, Morgan's Tarot. I shall refrain from making any further comments except true love is unconditional and unlimited. Unconditional and unlimited. Right. So this could probably be the equivalent of the Lovers card in normal tarot, but we have love card here. And the message that I added to it was, guess I'm allergic to love. What? I just sneezed. Okay. The message I added to it was, do it for love, do it with love, and love doing it. I guess that's what the guidebook gave me at that time, because it's not about romantic love. And guidebook even is saying, it depends on the context of the situation, right? So it's really not giving us a lot. But it reminds us of whatever you do it with love, do it for love, and love the process, love doing it. There's some wordplay, insignificant change or insignificant. This type of psychedelic crazy stuff. Gorgeous. I mean, I guess it's not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. But oh, so many good things. And it makes me slow down, obviously, because it's different. It's very different. You get something from this, something from the book. The way I work with it, I try to always write something extra next to it so that next time the meaning is expanded. And then I can also realize where I was when I wrote that, what headspace I was in, because it definitely changes what intuitively comes up when you look at a card. So there's that. But also, it's just the pure joy of having a deck that's crazy like this, yet it actually, oh, I hope I'm saying this correctly, it actually doesn't feel unhinged. It actually makes sense. Yes, that's what's so weird and good about this deck. Because it's a journey. We are searching for something. I think that's it. It's a very contemporary notion, I guess. We are looking for meaning, but at the same time, it's also kind of fun to believe that everything is random. And for some reason, both of those are true at the same time. Nothing is trivial, nothing really has meaning. There are also no mistakes, and mistakes is misspelled. And what does that misspelling then mean? Is that actually a mistake, or is it just a mistake because we chose that it's supposed to be, or yeah, that it's supposed to be written differently, spelled differently? This is a direct quote. I had no idea for the first couple of years I had this deck. This is a direct quote from The Fellowship of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, the first book. Do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger. When I read that in those cute little pocket books from the 70s that I read all of them. I just couldn't believe how, I owned this deck for so long and I didn't know the reference until I actually read the book, not just watched the movies, because I grew up with the movies. Again, 90s kid. Books only read a couple of years ago. And they're actually, yeah, worth it. I would say so. Especially the ending of the third one. Okay. Love God. Love is God, right? That's what it says. Some honorable mentions, but honestly, Crow's Magic, the reason that it could be slow deck is because sometimes I really need to think about what the card means. There's a lot of symbolism on the cards that are seemingly random. I don't know, it just opens up the mind. It's a cosmic deck. That's, I guess, what makes it a slower deck. Another one in here is Tower of the Magical Forest. It's again Rider-Waite-Smith clone, and just saying that you don't always need a crazy deck to get these deep and different readings. Sometimes all you need is a deck that has a different energy than the standard Rider-Waite-Smith, and you will still see in the clear 4 and 5 of Pentacles right here, you will still get very different feeling and emotion from it, and that can add a lot of depth and make it, you know, this slower, more relaxed reading. And then, for instance, Kazan-Lar, this one is in the Purgatory box for sure. Um, I love the idea of the deck and I don't love the deck. I love that it's an ecumenical deck, as Emil Kazan-Lar said in his guidebook. There's a lot to see on each card and it's gorgeous. I don't know what to do with it though. I don't reach for it. But the reason that this is a slow deck, first of all, there's so much occult, esoteric symbolism on the cards, but it's different cultures and there's this whole story, and I think that adds to the relax vibe of it, except that at the same time it overwhelms me. It's just another deck that I feel I need to study and I just don't, because I really like my tarot practice the way that it is now, and I would prefer to study random Untamed Spirit Animal Oracle, mass market, readily available, you know, not even that hyped on YouTube, if you know what I mean. I don't care about stuff like that, but still, you know, you get inspired by people. Um, I don't know. I just want to add something different rather than another complicated tarot deck. So I guess those are were my honorable mentions, and no, you know, negativity to any of those decks. Like Kazan-Lar, I don't actually use it at the moment. But guys, what am I saying? What's the main theme of these? I have a lot of collage, which I knew, just bringing in different forms of media, I guess, sort of. Different imagery makes me take a step back, you know, and read at a slower pace. Or weird does that really well too. Yeah. And I guess then also, you know, I don't really see this as a summer deck at all. But for me, summer also means that I have more time, I take my time, and I want to relax. So I guess these are sort of my summer decks. I really like the middle that I have here, which is not the feeling that I need to understand a whole new system, but it's actually understanding myself more, taking the time for myself. I think that's the main thing. All of these decks, I guess they bring out in me um, self-care. Yeah, taking the time to learn something about myself, or taking the time to write down something that I otherwise wouldn't even bother to do. And they're all such nice voices. This one, I guess, is the most fire of all of these, although this one can kick butt as well. You know, I'm just saying that it's so nice to be able to take the time for yourself. And these decks, I really feel at the moment, at least, they embody that. This one the least the moment, all right? Just because I've had this one, did I have it the longest? I'm not quite sure, but this is a very specific deck in my collection, right? Inner Child. I really don't have anything else to say. I love my tarot practice right now. I love bringing in, weird different oracles. I hope I explained it well. Um, and I hope you were able to, relax along with me because we deserve it. And it's nice that it's deep, but at the same time, it's funny, and it creates such a safe space. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed looking at these decks, really taking the time also to look at them. And let me know what your slower decks are. And maybe I'll do the quick and easy decks because I definitely have some in my collection that immediately fit that profile. But for now, stick around. I'm gonna put a video in the screen any moment now that I think you'll like as well. So click on that once this is done. And, maybe visit my Patreon. That's where I talk about other things, but also tarot still. Mostly, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you are all having a wonderful summer. So thank you.